Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Prepper Talk Radio. We got myself, Paris, Clough, and Scott and Shane in the house. We're excited to be able to come to you and bring another podcast to you. We're really excited that you guys listened to us. I was looking at the numbers this last week, or just this morning before the podcast, and we have over 10,000 downloads in the last 30 days. That's really cool. Somewhere out there, there's 10,000 downloads at least. I don't know how many people that equates to, but there's people listening, and we're excited that you want to be prepared and be ready, and that you're willing to listen to three guys who are just want to do our part to bring more readiness and self-reliance to the world.
And we'd like to invite you over to our YouTube channel to subscribe there as well. Remember, we're trying to give away some good stuff.
Yep.
Little 5-ounce silver bar and Jase case.
Yeah, we got the Jase Medical Jase case still going on. In fact, I did a review of that. So if you'll check that video out, I'll put a link in the description, and as well a link up above if you want to check that review that I did of my Jase case. You get a free one of those. It's a $250 value. That's just for being a subscriber to our YouTube channel and being a member of our Facebook group. We also just launched an Amazon store where we have and that'll be a link in the description as well, where you can go and look at the things that we have in our bug out bags, our grab and go bags, and some of the stuff that we're doing with our own gear. We're going to have links. We're going to have Shane's link. Scott has a link, and I'll have a link, and you can check out what we have in our bags. So check that out and support the show in that regard as well. But today we're going to talk about the importance of, and really actually the critical importance of skill building and drilling our skills. It's one thing to learn something. And one of the things that I really notice specifically is I've watched a lot of shows, and I've read a lot of material on gun handling. And this is anything in life, really. If you can read a lot about a game or read a lot about a particular skill, but until you actually go out and begin to build the muscle memory, it's a whole different thing. And I was having a little bit of a it was I don't know what you call it, but it was, my brain was like shooting, firing, and because I was trying to tell my muscles to do what my brain imagined. But my muscles, exactly. My muscles weren't doing it. So dude, I was like,
totally.
That drilling, it's got to get to the point where it's unconscious competence.
So for me, it's I've heard this quote a number of times, and I absolutely love it. It's the difference between an amateur and a professional. An amateur does it until they get it right. A professional does it until they cannot get it wrong.
That's powerful.
Right? Look at I don't care who you think is the greatest basketball player of all time, but one of the top, if not the number one, was Michael Jordan. Mm-hmm. You know, another one,
Kobe.
I could go Kobe, and I love them both. Like, and here's why. Like, Michael Jordan was probably the most competitive player in the entire NBA. Nobody could compete, like, mentally, emotionally. Like, he's like, oh, you're gonna trash me, you're gonna badmouth me while we're playing, you're gonna trash talk me while we're playing. I'm gonna take you to school, and he would just destroy opponents. But he didn't have to try to create some custom team to do it. He drilled and drilled and drilled and drilled, and he'd get his guys to drill and drill and drill. And then you look at Scottie Pippen. The practice would be over. Everybody, like Shaquille O'Neal was famous for talking about how, like, Scottie Pippen, Kobe. I don't know why I just said Scottie Pippen. Why Kobe would like go to practice, but before practice he'd shoot for 2 hours.
First in, last out.
Yep. He'd go to practice. He'd go to second practice, and Shaquille O'Neal's like, why do we have 2 practices? So I can be half-assed at both? Like, what's the point of this? Because he was like the laziest at practice. But his mindset was go to the game and be dominating. Where Kobe was, do it so much I can't do it wrong. 100% every single time I've got it wrong. And that's the thing. Like, where do we go from there?
And fortunately, we're focusing on things that are far more important than sports or basketball in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And like you say, Paris, and like you led off there with, firearms is kind of the first thing that comes to my mind as well. If anything, it's a perishable skill, and most skills are, especially something that, like you're saying, your communication between your brain and your hands. And, that's something you don't always have to go to the range and expend ammo. There's other ways to do that, to drill. One of the drills, I guess maybe to not get too specific, We have a lot of things we want to talk about, but one of the many drills I do is drawing from concealment, right? I conceal carry every single day. It's important to me. It's becoming more and more important every day as things get more and more crazy. And so practicing drawing from concealment, so it becomes automatic, just like you're saying. I become competent without even thinking about it, especially when you get into a situation where your heart starts to beat, right? Your brain may not be as clear as it should be, especially if you haven't practiced and drilled that in and you know exactly what you're going to do in a stressful situation.
Yeah, there's a hierarchy of competence, and it begins with unconscious incompetence, which means you don't know what you don't know. And then there's conscious incompetence, meaning you know that you don't know, and you're like, oh crap.
Yeah.
And then there's conscious competence, where you know what you don't know, but you're working on it and you're developing it, and you have to think about it in order to do it. And sometimes in an emergency situation, by the time you thought about what to do, it's already too late. And that's the highest level of competence, is where you're unconsciously competent. It's like blinking and breathing, and those types of things are unconscious things that we do, and we're competent at them because we've been doing them our whole lives. And so what in your life, and everybody has something, what in your life are you unconsciously competent about? And I bring that up because I want to prove to you that it's possible for you to get to that level. There's
just think
something
about
that you do.
Think about driving down the street. How many times have you're driving home from work or wherever you do on a regular basis, and you're listening to a program or something, a podcast, and then all of a sudden you realize you're home. Like, wait a second, how did I get here?
Right?
I don't remember making this turn to that turn. It was just automatic. That's probably the thing that I can relate to the most.
I'm totally guilty of that. Like, my wife laughs because I'll be like on my way somewhere, and like for where we live, you've got to go down the same streets every time you want to leave. And it's like, I'll turn and start driving to the church. She's like, where are you going? I'm like,
Going to church. Oh, well, autopilot.
Unconsciously incompetent.
Right.
Like I'm it's like, what am I doing? But yeah. Go over that list again, Paris. That was like, for me, I was like, oh crap. I'd heard it before, but
it's unconscious incompetence, meaning you don't know what you don't, like, you're unconscious about it. You don't even know, and you're incompetent, meaning you have no skills. So you don't know that you don't have any skills. And then you become consciously incompetent, meaning you're aware that you don't have the skills. They're like, crap, I need to learn how to do that. And I have no skill sets at all. And I need to figure out how to gain those skill sets. And then you're consciously competent as you're gaining the skill sets, as you're developing the skill sets, the disciplining of yourself. You have to think about every little thing. So imagine you're learning to, this is something that really came to, and a good example was in golf. There was a time when Tiger Woods, and I'm dating myself in terms of how much I know about golf. There's probably a much better player by now, but at one point Tiger Woods was winning the Masters, and he'd won several of them. And his coach said, we need to redo your swing. And so he had worked on his swing, and he was unconsciously competent. Like he would get up to the thing, close his eyes, and he could swing that thing and go. He says, we need to work on it. So he had to come back, and he had to think about every way he was holding the club. He had to think about the twist and the angle and the height and the level. Every little thing he had to be consciously aware of, and that can be overwhelming. But he worked through that, and he actually had a better swing after doing that, and he ended up going on. He actually lost several competitions for a while until he finally got it, and it became that unconscious competence, and then he started winning again. And that's the same thing with us. Is that so? The final stage is that unconscious competence, where you don't even have to think about it, and you have a skill set that is so high that you get things done.
Yeah, and I think that comes after I think what I've heard about 10,000 hours of doing that activity.
Yeah, they say to become an expert takes 10,000 hours.
Mm-hmm. So you better get started.
Well, here's a really cool thing I just learned a couple weeks ago was when it comes to like drilling emergency plan with your family, it only takes 3 times to have it, to remember it, right? To have it sink in. But what I've learned was, like, we used to do it at least once a year, but we try to do it twice a year. Now like if you're exposing someone to a new plan, do it every day for 3 days, and your kids will have it. But do it every day for 3 days. Don't wait long times between it when you're first learning it. So same goes with like software. As I'm learning things for work or different things, it's like the more I use it in frequency, boom, 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 the longer I'm going to retain that information in my brain. So if you go and you're like, hey, here's our emergency plan, or hey, I got a gun and I'm going to go practice once and think I've got it for the rest of my life, you're fooling yourself. You actually have to do it, and you have to do it repetitiously. Like if you want to get to where you can actually hit the target every time, it's not going to take 3 times. But to be able to reload, you can pretty much have it in 3 tries, right? You know how to reload after 3 tries. Boom, 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 boom. You've got it figured out. So with the greater value on that skill, or the more importance to that skill or function or process, like the harder the complexity, like the more you have to actually do it. And that's the thing, is like, how many free throws do you think Kobe Bryant has ever shot without anybody blocking? You know, and then how many free throws, or not just free throws, but any shots as he had to shoot without anybody blocking? And then how many times he called somebody like, hey, I need you to just come block me for 4 hours while I shoot, or whatever, you know? That I'm probably thousands upon thousands upon thousands. I don't know. Like, I'm not good at basketball, so it's not my thing, and I'm not a sports guy, but I'm here talking sports metaphor all of a sudden. Everything we do, like if we don't continually do it, that skill kind of degrades. It's like riding a bicycle. You have it, but you get kind of rusty if you haven't done it in a long time.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's so I would say then, just to kind of get a hierarchy here, if you will, of value, is what do we think are what would be maybe the top 3 to 5 skills that we could probably help people realize is probably where they should start in this, if they're going to start this 10,000 hour journey in any skill set at all. What would we recommend as maybe a skills that they could do, and then maybe some ways that they can start and progress down that road? What would you guys say?
Oh, I think that's going to be very personal. I think for me, I could list those top 3. And I've already mentioned what I'm working on this year. I'm working on my handgun skills. That's one of them. And I don't think all of them will apply to what you're talking about there, repetition, and that definitely applies. Otherwise, I'm working on medical skills. Obviously, when you're in a stressful situation, you got to know how to do CPR. You got to know how to put on a tourniquet. You got to know how to do life-saving things, of how to apply a compression bandage or a tourniquet, those types of things.
Yeah.
And so that takes some conscious effort, right? I don't know that it takes the kind of repeating that running a handgun does, right? Other than that, on my list, I also have something that I really want to work on. I'm trying to work on my breathing. I'm trying to work on my state of mind and focus. And that takes a lot of hours, right? That takes a lot of dedication. So maybe that does apply toward the 10,000 hour rule there too. So, but it's definitely a habit that I need to build. And, habits can take, I don't know, maybe they take 3 days, maybe they take 300 days to build.
Some of those things you can actually really break down even to multiple things, like in firearms. Maybe you're practicing the draw, and then that you get really good at that. And then you practice the actual hitting the target part, which is a critical part, and maybe you start doing it with a timer, and then you maybe compete against your buddy and say, okay, one of the cool things that we did in that class that I took was at the very end, he had 2 of us, he had us pair up, and he says, okay, now you're going to compete against your partner. And what you do is you're going to shoot twice. You're going to drop the magazine, reload, and shoot again. And the first person to finish wins. And so it was like, so you're doing multiple things. You're drawing, you're shooting, you're changing the magazine, you're reloading. You're like, it was like this whole thing. And my heart rate started going. I kind of felt like I was in one of those, high adrenaline situations, because we had mimicked or mocked a scenario that would kind of give that same kind of feeling of adrenaline kind of rushing. Oh my God, I'm in competition with my buddy here. So, the thing, first aid too, like practice. If someone's going to choke, how do you get that? That could be a first aid medical. If somebody has a cut, you got to know how to bandage it properly. If somebody has a broken leg or broken arm, like how do you go through different scenarios? So even in each one of these things, there's different things you can kind of break down into a set of skills that you can really kind of do one at a time to work on and get good at.
It's funny because
Yeah,
now I'm
absolutely.
like, okay, I need to add this to my list. And like, just
Yeah, I'm taking notes. I'm like, Shane's doing what?
skills to
Okay, I
train
gotta do that
on.
too.
Have you guys ever watched Survivor? That TV show Survivor?
No.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
Nope.
you win $1 million. Like supposedly, I met with a guy who says he was the one that actually created that, and I'm like, we'll see. But he was at PrepperCon, and what's interesting is they turned it from a survival show to supposedly to a game show. But one of the things, my wife's like super addicted to it, so I watch it with her a lot of times. Well, not addicted, loves it. One of the things they do is they have a fire starting contest that could be the $1 million challenge. Like, do you get a vie for the $1 million? Like, you have to go in front of the jury and convince them that you're the best. But like, what if it comes down to, can I start a fire? And it's
Yeah.
like the people who can't start a fire are the ones they always take with them to the finale, because they were the like least beneficial to the whole show, to the whole season, to everybody else. They just kind of got through because they weren't a threat.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, can you start a fire to save your life?
Now, when it comes to a hand drill fire, yes, that's something that needs a lot
It's
of
not
practice.
a hand drill.
If you're using a bow drill, that's a lot easier. I'm just saying, using a hand drill takes a
Right.
lot of practice.
This is a flint and steel.
That's quite a bit easier as well.
But it comes down to, do you understand kindling? Do you understand, can you make your little
tinder bundle,
tinder box? Can you do your tinder bundle? And they give them coconut husk, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this would be so like,
but as good as it gets.
Here is everything perfect you need for a fire, and I'm like, come on. And they're sitting there for like who knows how long trying to start a fire, and I'm like, guys, like, you're given all the ideal equipment, do it. But
which goes to show that the gear doesn't matter. It's the skills.
It's the skill. Drill the skill. I work on my house. I do a lot of work around my house, and I'm like, things that I'm not good at, or things take me a lot longer to do.
But when you have the right tool, it makes the job so much easier. So
Even
I'm going to argue with you a
tool.
little bit there, Paris. Having the right tool does matter. Like having the right steel, right? The right carbon steel for your flint and steel, and having a good stone, right? Yeah, there's some flint that doesn't work very well, and there's some that works better than others, right?
Mhm.
So just knowing that combination and how to strike it, tools do matter, but
They do.
Skills. If you have the right skills, like you're saying there, about to say there,
Mhm.
Scott, you can make things work a lot better than other people that have no idea what they're doing.
So basically, what I was trying to get to is like, I have pretty decent skills. They're not great skills. If I had better skills, I could use the tools even better.
Mhm.
Right? I have good tools. I had crappy tools before. I've got a lot better tools now because I feel like I need the better tools to really do a better job, and I do a better job. But if you put me tiling a front room, a family room, a kitchen, whatever, next to a professional, and we both get the job done, they're going to look at mine and go, "Oh, that's okay." They're going to look at his or hers and go, "Holy crap, that's amazing."
Mm-hmm.
Why? It's because they've developed that skill so much farther beyond me.
The
right?
experience.
And experience drilling the skill, right? That's what experience is you're drilling the skill.
Mm-hmm.
I was in soccer as a kid, and I was never amazing at it, but I was pretty good. And I could kick the farthest on the team. But I couldn't score a goal because I always lifted the ball above the freaking net, above the goal.
You had the power, not the aim.
Right. I like, when you're a big guy, that's what everybody just wants you for the power. But it's the same thing. Like, you have to drill it, and you have to drill it correctly. Like, you have to work on the skill correctly. And if you have better tools, it's going to make your job easier, and you can have a better, final product because of that. So it's like, first thing to do, write down what you want to learn, or write down what you have, but you want to get better at. And then I would say the second thing is, go find someone who's really good at it and have them teach you a better way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know,
Here's another. Oh, sorry, Paris. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if somebody's getting started in learning how to be prepared, to be more self-reliant, what are the skills that you're really kind of naturally attracted to? Start with those. Like if you feel like you really want to be the medic of your group, do it. That's where you need to go. If you want to be the mechanic of your group, then that's what you drill. If you want to be, you know, the engineer of the group, or if you want to be the planner, if you want to be whatever you're kind of drawn to, start with that. But I think there's some generic skills like food storage, knowing which foods to get, what, you know, which beans and how to cook them properly and how to soften them up once there's, you know, how to organize, you know, everybody in a SEAL team, in a high level team, everybody knows how to do a little bit of everybody else's job in case one of them gets taken out. They specialize, but then everybody still has a little bit of a jack of all trades as well. And I think it's still critical to kind of do that, because one of the things that I would say is food storage, learning how to really store the food properly in the right places, in the right containers, the right way, knowing how to then unstore that to use, practicing eating it, practicing cooking with it. And then water filtration. Like everybody thinks it's super easy to filter water, and it can be, if you've done it a few times, and it doesn't take necessarily 10,000 hours to be an expert water filtration guy, but it does take a few practices to learn should I melt it and cook it and boil it, or should I filter it through this, this filter that I have? What should I use? And then practice a couple scenarios. Like if you're in the woods, in the wilderness, there's one way to do it. If you're in your home and you've got a Berkey filter or something like that, then there's another way to do it. So there's just some of these things are simple. And I think that those are the things that should be practiced first. So food, water, and first aid are kind of those critical things. And fire building is critical. We've already talked about that. But those are the kind of the things that I was just thinking right off the top is those. Everybody should have at least some level of competency, whether it's conscious competence or unconscious. I don't care. Just have some level of competency in knowing those areas, and then expand from there.
I think what goes along with that is one of the reasons why you drill is, for example, I'll give you two examples. Obviously, we talked about that using the handgun and drawing from concealment. Do you know what the right holster is? What is the right holster that's going to work for you? How many different holsters have I tried personally and realize this is just not working with the way I dress, with the way, summer, winter, spring, fall. And so that takes a lot of trial and error.
Coordination, yeah.
Exactly. So I've gone through literally dozens of different holsters. I've settled on one for a while. And even I've gone through several different handguns that this just is not working for what I wanted to do, and bought and sold and traded and so forth. And that's taken, I've been a concealed carrier for 20 plus years. It took me a good 10 plus years probably to figure out and really settle on a particular situation. So that's one of the reasons why to drill. Another reason, have you guys seen what's been going on in Texas right now? 344,532 customers out of power in the state of Texas right now.
Wow.
As you can see, it's red. And so what I'm getting at is, I built that power bank, and I'm putting it through the test. I'm trying it different ways. And on my first test, I basically ran my refrigerator for 21 hours is what it did. But there were certain things I learned about the way I built this that I didn't like, that I've changed and I'm tweaking, and now I got to put it through another test. And so I think this is all part of the reason to drill and to practice and to experiment and try things out, is because you learn those little things that will become important in an emergency, like my little power bank. Like, this breaker keeps tripping. What's going on with this? Why is this happening? And it's because of the way I had it configured and so forth. But things I didn't learn until I put it into practice. And so now I'm making those tweaks, and then I'm going to run it again and make more adjustments if need be. And if you've just got your stuff, you buy it, you set it aside, and you're not trying to, you're not using it, not learning from it. When it comes to an emergency, you're going to realize, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That's like the kryptonite for prepping is not practicing, not drilling. And I think so many preppers buy all this stuff and it's still in the plastic packaging, or it's never been opened. It's never been tested.
Or it's in the go bag, and the go
Right.
bag is.
And I'm like,
in the
oh man.
closet.
And I there's certain things that I'm guilty of that on. I bought a Kelly kettle like 5 months ago and I still haven't played with it. I still haven't cracked. Yeah, it's out of the box, thankfully.
At least.
I've gotten rid of all the plastic, and I'm like, it's ready to go when I need to use it. I've used another one, but I got to break it in.
But you already have the basics of fire building. You already know that,
right? I've
So-
got all that, but it's like
easy to plug in.
I want to go use it. I'm like, I got to use it, but there's the problem people are going to say is either they don't have the time or they don't have the money. And I think that's wrong. I think those excuses are garbage. You don't need money to prep. Like, I'm a perfect example of that. More than half the stuff I have for prepping, I didn't pay for. I don't have to. People give it to me. They're like, here, you need this. Actually, they're like, here, I need you to try my stuff, see if it's good. And I'm like, okay, we'll try it and tell them. Or like, here's one. I got this. It's a holster.
Yeah.
It's one of the ones I love.
That is a stealth gear. Stealth gear, yeah.
And I've got 3 holsters from them. I've only paid for one of them, right? And I've got fire plugs. Like, I've got stuff. Some of it I've used a lot. Some of it I've used very little. But it's like, there's other ways to do it. Trade. Do product review videos. Do gear stuff. Like, tell your friends. Do group buys. Oftentimes they'll send you a free one. Like, that's how you can get stuff. And I can go into that in a whole other episode. But it's like, get that excuse out of your mind. Like, I can't afford it. Get the most essential things now, and then expand as you grow. And then the other part is if you're buying stuff and you don't know how to use the stuff you've already bought, why are you buying more stuff?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Right? Take the time. It's like, turn off like Survivor or other TV shows or whatever's your time suck, waste, right? And focus on something that's going to help you. Because even if you don't use that skill tomorrow, tomorrow's tomorrow, you might need it. And it's better to know it and never have to use it in a life-saving situation than to not know it and be in that moment and have to have it. And someone you love is dead because you didn't take the time.
Mm-hmm.
God forbid you lose your kids to starvation because you didn't store food that you use all the time, the same types of stuff you buy, like,
or learn how to make bread out of what you have. And so that's another thing on my list is for this year is to take my wheat berries and grind them up and try different ways of making bread. Figure out which one's going to work best for me, for what I have in storage. Figure out where my weak spots are. Do I need more of this? Do I need more of that? Mm-hmm. To do this one recipe that I know that I can figure out that I can do really well. I can do it in a cast iron pot and do it in Dutch oven. I can do it in an oven, in multiple different ways, so that when it comes down to it, like, I need to bake some bread, and I can do it in my sleep, and that is a skill, and just as well as canning and preserving food and all different things like that. So there's so many different aspects of this that you could take and become good at and become a value to your family and your community.
100%.
Yeah. Let's take a quick break and let you just focus everybody to a video we just did, a review for a light we just did, a Devos Outdoor light. If you'll look in our channel on YouTube, you'll see that we did a light. I'll put a link in the description up down below and on our YouTube, and I'll also make a card available for everybody. But just go check out these reviews we're doing, because we're doing a lot of reviews on different gear. I know that it's important to develop skills, but as Shane clearly pointed out, that sometimes having the right gear is the best thing to have. And I did a review on a light. It's a great light for camping. It will it's a pole, and then it has a light on the top of it, and it illuminates a wide range of area for your campsites. But I think it's a really great tool for power outages in your home, because you can telescope that pole up to the ceiling, and it can be a whole room light for your whole room, in your living room or any other rooms that you have. So it's a great tool for either outdoor use or even indoor use if you're using it for emergencies. And I did a review on that this last week, so check out that video for us. And then I'll jump into, like, I just bought, Shane, I called you from Costco the other day, and I said, hey, they're having a deal on fire extinguishers. And if your house is burning down, do you know how to use a fire extinguisher properly? Because there's actually a skill to using a fire extinguisher properly. I took the course with our community emergency response team, which is CERT. and they taught me how to use a fire extinguisher properly. And I actually got to fire one, and it was really cool. And you're supposed to, most people will run up to a fire and they'll just start spraying, not realizing that they're supposed to spray at the base of the fire and then work your way up. You don't start up and work your way down. You go the opposite. And so there's certain things like that it's important to know and practice. And unless you've fired a fire extinguisher before, it can be kind of a shock when that first thing that kind of pushes you a little bit, because it's a little bit of pressure that gets released. So
and
there's certain things like that you need to practice.
Yeah, kind of like shooting a big rifle for the first time, right? Or a handgun. The first thing you're a shotgun. First thing you're going to do, you're going to jerk. You're going to be afraid of that rifle or whatever, how it's going to recoil, or the handgun, and you're going to pull your shot one way or the other, right? And you're going to anticipate it, and you're going to totally miss your target. And that's where practice really comes in. And like they say, even with the fire extinguisher, no one had how that's going to feel, how far it's going to shoot, and so probably not a bad idea to buy a couple of them and then train with one of them. Get your family out there, create a fire, build a fire that each one of the kids can take a minute. You can relight the fire, and they can hose it out and knock it down, and then try it again. So they all have that experience of running a fire extinguisher. And so when it comes down to it, there's a fire, I know what to do. It builds a lot of confidence, right?
I've done it before. I know what to do, and I know how to use it. Yeah, there's power in having confidence. And I think that's another part of being self-reliant, is that when you know that, and that's why I was trying to tell people earlier, like, find something in your life right now that you're consciously competent about, or that you're unconsciously competent about. Because if you can do it in one thing, you can do it in everything. Well, maybe not everything, but you can do it in majority of things. And so recognize, wait a minute, I did it before, I can do it again. And that should give you confidence to say, hey, whatever skill set I need to learn, I can do it, and I can learn it, and I can take the time to learn it, because you clearly took the time to learn the one you have. And it's just a matter of now making it a priority and learning a new skill and putting it as a priority for your life, because it could be life or death. And I'd rather know a skill or have a skill and never have to use it than to be in a situation where, oh crap, I wish I would have practiced. I wish I would have drilled this, because it could have saved a life. CPR could have saved a life, knowing how to filter water better, food better, whatever. Knowing these skills are critical.
And I think for me, the place to start, if there's anywhere to start, it's start making plans. And I guess what I mean by that is, call it a thought experiment. Call it your own think tank with your family. Okay, how would we go about this? And you come up with a plan, and then you put that plan into practice. If it doesn't work, go back and revisit that plan, right? So, like we said a million times, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I think that comes in with every aspect, not just, okay, I'm just going to go out and I'm going to go shoot the targets. What am I going to do? What kind of drill am I going to do? Am I going to just try and shoot slow, or shoot fast, or shoot accurate, or shoot, all different kinds of drills. So taking the time to plan out, okay, this is what I'm going to do this time. This is what I'm going to practice this next time. This is a strength. This is a weakness, in focusing on kind of the handgun drills or whatever it might be. I think once you get into that process, you'll realize, there's a lot more that are opening up my eyes are opening up, that I can say, you know what? I didn't realize this. I need to learn more about this. And I know I'm being very generic, but kind of like going back to my power bank video, like, I didn't realize this. I just learned this by running this simple little drill, by practicing this. And then your eyes are opened up again to a whole nother world. Like, again, going back to handguns. This holster is not working for what I want it to do. Let's try something else. Or I put this sight on my rifle. It's not, I don't think I'm doing something right. Something's wrong. How do I fix this? And it's just it can be a very long process. So you better get started now.
I specifically remember the first year that I was going to plant a garden. I was like, how hard can this be? I'm going to throw some seeds in the ground, do a little water. Man, I'm going to have a harvest, dude. I'm not going to have to eat for weeks, because I'll go to the grocery store for weeks, because I'll be able to grow everything I need. I killed more stuff than I grew. And I was like, man, this is a skill set. This is really a legit skill set. And so it's important to take, and it took me 3 or 4 years of season before I actually was able to grow enough that it was worthwhile. And then I had these cucumbers that were huge, dude. Like I can't even, like they were huge. And I was like, dang, I'm really good at cucumbers and tomatoes, but I need to start learning how to be good at other things. So even in the gardening, for goodness sakes, is a skill that needs to be built and developed so that you know when to plant and how to plant and when to harvest and when to not just harvest the food, but then use the seeds in the food so that you have a renewable source of seeds. Because that's one of the big things that, you know, if we have an extended period of time where there's an economic downturn and you can't have a store, what happens if it's 2 or 3 years long and you only have seeds for one season? Shoot, you know, you're going to need to learn how to harvest those seeds. And Shane, you really hit it on the head with canning. And I know we've all talked about canning before, and we've even had people on the show talking about canning. That's a skill set that I really need to learn. I have fruit trees in my yard that I wasted so much fruit this year because I didn't know how to can it and preserve it. So that's something that I really need to learn right away.
Amen.
Very cool.
Let's end this episode then. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for taking the time to be with us here today. And I hope you got a lot out of it. I hope you are motivated, inspired, and feeling good about drilling skills. And actually, first, getting a list of the skills you want to drill down so that you can then start drilling those skills. Jump into our Facebook group and ask questions about certain skill sets. There's some subject matter experts in there that can probably give you some tips and tricks, especially after you've practiced for a little while and maybe you want to learn a few nuances about how to get better at a certain skill set. Whatever that skill set might be, we've got somebody pretty much in there, or we can put you in the right direction and point you to somebody who knows a little more than we do if you need to know more than what we already know and can share. But make sure you go to our Facebook page and join our Facebook group. Make sure you hit like and subscribe on our YouTube channel so that we have, once we hit 1,000 subscribers, we're going to run that Jase Medical Jase case drawing, and we're going to do a 5-ounce silver bar drawing. So thank you so much for being with us. And with that, I'll get out of the way and let you guys have a great week and stay ready-minded. And we'll see you next time.
See ya.